So in the previous lesson, we learned about different data types like these. So let's delete them off and let's focus on the variables, which we're going to talk about in this lesson. So as you can see, we occurred a error that Python is undefined. And I told you that it is telling us that error because Python is a variable which we did not define. So what does these means, these defining variables, and actually what is variables? So as I told you before, a variable is a box that can store any value. So let's create a variable like for, let's say we want to store our age in this variable. So we can pass in, let's pass 21. And then let's say we want to print our age. So let's print, we will use print function, and then we'll pass age. And then let's control plus enter. You can see we have 21. So as you can see, we passed age to the print and we got 21 printed in here. So this is the way variables work. So you may think that it should have printed age in here. We can do so by just selecting that and the quotes, and then you can see we get the age. But if we remove the quotes, that is, we are telling that it is not a text data. It is a store. It is a value. It has a value. Print that value. So we are notifying that as age, and it has a value 21. So in the first line, we store that into age, and then we're telling to let me show what is the age. So it is 21. So this is the way variables work. So you may understand that why we should use variables instead of just passing 21 directly here. So we can use these variables in many places. Like let's say we have an application in which we will take the age of the user and we will perform a lot of functions with it. So it is something that you cannot perform with just the number itself. You need a store, or you can say this is a pen drive, as you need a pen drive to store some values. Let's say you have games, anything. It can store anything, games, movies, music. That's up to you what you store in the pen drive. So variables work same. They store values. As we learned in the previous lesson, the different type of data types. It can store any type of value. It can even store strings. It can store decimal point values. It can store complex numbers, etc., etc. It can also store the lists we talked about. So then what comes with the variables? So as you can see, we stumble upon the term that is your variable is not defined. Your name is not defined. So let's say we create name, and then it is followed by a equal signs, that is name will be, let's say, John. So now let's run the program. Let's see, you have seen not or not. We will get an error that name age is not defined. So you can check that we change the name of the variable to this NAME. That's why we get this error, because age is not defined here. That's what the error we encountered back when we created the Python program. So here we need to just pass that name and everything sorted out. We got John in there. Oh, so that's the way variables work. So let's say we want to change the name of John. So let's change the name. We want it to store Jake instead. Okay, so let's run the program, but we get John again. Why is that? So if you see, we have here lines, that is 1, then 2, and then 3. So in Python program, codes are executed line by line in a program. So this is a program, this has 3 lines, and 3 lines are executed line by line. Means first this is executed, means we have the name as John, then the second line we print the function, so we form and action onto it, that is printed here, and then we change the name to Jake, that is, oh, we need Jake instead, but we did not specify to print that again, so that's why we get John in here. So if you want it to be updated to Jake, here you need to remove this print line from here and then add this to the third line. So now if you run the program, you get Jake in here. So you need to keep in mind that Python programs or codes are executed line by line, so the order of the codes in their lines matter. So that's it for this lesson. In the next lesson we will learn more about variables. In this lesson we learned about what is a simple variable and we get the introduction about it. But let's say we create a variable like this, 890 layers. So it will, let's say we created a 89 players variable and it will store some values, let's say some names of the players like Jake. So we create a list, by the way, but if we just let it be 2 players names, don't look at the names, and then control plus enter, we get an error. So let's look up in the next lesson why we got this error.